The notion that rights don't come from laws and don't come from the government, but come from the Creator, that's what the Iranian government believes. It's a theocratic regime that bases its rule on Shia law and targets Sunnis, Baha'is, Jews, Christians, and other religious minorities. And they do it because they believe that they understand what natural rights are from their Creator.
Because I have to say, I think was disturbing and showed much of where today's Democrat Party has gone wrong. So Senator Kaine said in this hearing that he found it a radical and dangerous notion that you would say our rights came from God and not from government. I just walked into the hearing as he was saying that, and I almost fell out of my chair. Because that radical and dangerous notion, in his words, is literally the founding principle upon which the United States of America was created.
Welcome back to Right View Nation. Before we dive into today's firestorm, make sure you hit that subscribe button, smash the like button, share this video with every freedom-loving American you know, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. We need your voices louder than ever because the fight for our country's soul is happening right now.
Mr. Barnes, I was struck by your opening comments, and I asked to get a copy of them so I could read them and make sure I quoted them correctly. You state, and this is a quote from Secretary Rubio, "Our rights come from God, our Creator, not from our laws, not from our governments." I find that very, very troubling. I'm a devout person. I was a missionary in Honduras. We've got other devout folks in this room, Christian, Jewish, Muslim American. The notion that rights don't come from laws and don't come from the government, but come from the Creator, that's what the Iranian government believes. It's a theocratic regime that bases its rule on Shia law and targets Sunnis, Baha'is, Jews, Christians, and other religious minorities. And they do it because they believe that they understand what natural rights are from their Creator. So the statement that our rights do not come from our laws or our governments is extremely troubling. I think the motto over the Supreme Court is equal justice under law. The oath that you and I take, pledge to support and defend the Constitution of the United States, not arbitrarily defined natural rights. I'm a strong believer in natural rights, but I have a feeling if we were to have a debate about natural rights in the room and put people around the table with different religious traditions, there would be some significant differences in the definitions of those natural rights. You go on to say, "I believe our country and our government is the best in the world, and our strength comes from our enduring values." I believe that. But then you say, and you got to choose what to say in your opening testimony, these values aren't an endless list of, quote, rights. You put the quote around that to kind of demean the notion of rights that people create and change and form to meet their own needs or desires. These values aren't identity politics. They're the historic natural rights that we have as individuals pursuing life, liberty, and happiness in the world. Pursuing life, liberty, and happiness. The State Department's Human Rights Report has just struck out all references to the rights of LGBTQ people in countries and the way countries treat LGBTQ people. I mean, do they have a right to liberty? Do they have a right to life? Do they have a right to happiness? Senator Murphy pointed out that the Human Rights Report has taken out information about freedom of association, about freedom of expression, about exploitation of children, about prison conditions. These were all part of the human rights reports that have been done for years by the State Department. I think these are things that are connected to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They've now all been removed from the State Department's annual human rights report. And the notion that, well, we wanted to make it shorter or more readable just doesn't pass the laugh test with me and many others on this committee. I'm not really going to ask you about your testimony because I believe you offered that in a very sincere way, and I don't want to try to change your opinion on something you sincerely believe. But the notion that our rights do not come from our laws or our government should make people very, very nervous. Because people of any religious tradition or none are entitled to the equal protection of the laws under the 14th Amendment. It shouldn't matter what their religious background is, what they think about God or the Creator, what their church affiliation is. You are entitled in this country, every person, to the equal protection of the laws. And so to demean laws and demean governments and suggest that rights don't come from laws and governments, I mean, again, I think there are such things as natural rights, and I try to live in accord with them. But I would never demean the law. We are a nation of laws, not men. Laws, not people. And if we now, after nearly 250 years, suddenly start to demean that or diminish that and suggest, no, it's natural rights as defined by a leader, the leader of Iran or the leader of any nation, that does not create a place of safety or comfort for folks. Mr. Wilcox, I want to just...
Mr. Barnes, I'd actually like to go back to the exchange you had with Senator Kaine, and I wish Senator Kaine was still here. Senator Kaine and I were elected together 13 years ago. He is a friend. I would actually encourage observers to go back and listen to what Senator Kaine said, because I have to say I think was disturbing and showed much of where today's Democrat Party has gone wrong. So Senator Kaine said in this hearing that he found it a radical and dangerous notion that you would say our rights came from God and not from government. I just walked into the hearing as he was saying that, and I almost fell out of my chair. Because that radical and dangerous notion, in his words, is literally the founding principle upon which the United States of America was created. And if you do not believe me, and you made reference to this, Mr. Barnes, then you can believe perhaps the most prominent Virginian to ever serve, Thomas Jefferson, who wrote in the Declaration of Independence, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator, not by government, not by the Democratic National Committee, but by God, with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." I have to say it is stunning to me that the principle that God has given us natural rights is now deemed by Democrats some radical and dangerous notion. Mr. Jefferson was right when he wrote those words. Government exists to protect those rights. But slavery was not okay when U.S. law allowed it. It was wrong then, it is wrong now, it is always wrong. I guess I would just ask you, your role is going to be very much a role designed to defend human rights across the globe. Do you agree with what I just said? And what do you think about the concept that the founding principles of America are radical and dangerous? What do you think about that particular notion?
Yes, Senator, I appreciate the question. And I'll just say, I think one of the ideas behind, we have a new office in DRL, Office of Natural Rights, post the reorganization. I think one of the ideas behind that is you actually have the most consensus behind these natural rights than the kind of, maybe hot button issues of the day. And so we should champion those. As Senator Kaine mentioned, all are created equal. We agree with that. That's in the Declaration of Independence, as is endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights.
Thank you.
Folks, let's talk about what just went down in that hearing. A so-called representative of the American people actually said he finds it troubling that someone would believe our rights come from God and not from government. Troubling? Let me tell you what's troubling. It's troubling that after nearly 250 years of America's standing as a beacon of liberty, we now have politicians openly questioning the very founding principle that made this nation possible. This isn't just about philosophy. It's about the heart and soul of America. When Thomas Jefferson wrote in the Declaration of Independence that we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, he wasn't making a suggestion. He was declaring that no king, no tyrant, no bureaucrat, and certainly no modern-day socialist politician can take away what God Almighty gave to us. But what do the left do? They twist, they distort, and they try to put government on the throne where God belongs. They want us to believe that rights are handed out like coupons from Washington, D.C., that you only get to live free if the government approves. That's not freedom, my friends. That's slavery to the state. And here's the kicker. They try to compare this God-given truth to the Iranian theocracy. Give me a break. That's not only insulting, it's dangerous. America isn't Iran. Our founders didn't set up a system where a handful of clerics dictate faith. They set up a republic where God-given rights come first, and government exists only to protect those rights. Not define them, not limit them, and certainly not erase them. Let's not forget, these same Democrats are the ones stripping out references to religious liberty, freedom of expression, the rights of the unborn, and now even twisting the State Department's human rights reports to fit their woke agenda. They don't care about equal justice. They care about identity politics and government power. The truth is simple. When rights come from God, they are eternal. They cannot be voted away, they cannot be stripped by executive orders, and they do not bend to the mob. But when rights come from government, guess what? They can be given and taken at will. Today you have free speech, tomorrow it's hate speech. Today you can worship, tomorrow your church doors are chained shut. Sound familiar? It should, because we lived through it not too long ago. And let's address the hypocrisy. These politicians take an oath to defend the Constitution, but they treat it like it's some flexible guideline they can rewrite whenever it doesn't serve their political agenda. They forget that the Constitution itself is built on the truth that rights come first, government comes second. This battle isn't new, it's the same battle our founders fought. Back then, it was against the crown. Today, it's against the radical left who thinks the government is God. But here's the good news. Patriots like you and me are awake, we're fired up, and we're not going to let them rewrite history or redefine freedom. Folks, this is why Right View Nation exists, to call out this nonsense and remind Americans where our strength really comes from. It's not Washington, it's not politicians, it's not some bloated bureaucracy. It's from God, family, and the timeless principles of liberty. So once again, make sure you subscribe, hit that like button, share this with every patriot you know, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe rights come from God or from government? Let's hear it loud and clear. Because here on Right View Nation, we don't apologize for the truth, we stand on it. Until next time, stay strong, stay free, and stay unapologetically American.